Welcome to Hashtag Narrative, a Football Manager podcast where we sit around the virtual campfire and recount stories from past saves. Today we have the pleasure of Mr. WorkTheSpace. Jack, hello.
Hello, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm kind of excited to get warmed up and toasty round the fire today.
Oh, I like that. And we have my co-presenter, who I should have probably introduced first, but I don't care. It is Lelujo, Mr. Kev. Hello, sir.
Lelujo? Is that what we're calling me now?
Okay. Oh, okay. Should we run that again? And
No, we won't. No, I want that on the record. That's
okay.
how it's Lelujo or Kev. Just call me Kev. You don't need to use the code word. Hello, by the way. Hi.
Oh, good.
Can I ask, what is the origins of the code word?
This is right. This is officially going to be the last time I tell the story because I've said it too many times. Thanks for watching, Jack. The origins of it were about 10 years ago when Xbox Live first came out. I didn't want an Xbox Live gamer tag that had numbers and weird
like
variants
Mystic
of my
Sheep
name.
93.
Yeah, exactly. So I just sat there combining syllables until it let me have one without adding numbers on the end. And this was about the fourth one I got to. So that's where it came from. I've used it for everything since.
Nice.
I feel enlightened.
Thanks for that.
Can I just say, I knew the story. I was asking for the listeners who might not know.
Oh, well, you see, you're a proper pro.
They're lies, Jack. We know they're lies. Don't
know
try
what you're
to
talking
butter
about.
him up. Right. Anyway, let's get on with this, shall we? Before Mr. Kev continues to railroad my planning. Right. Okay. So we're going to go through some basic questions and let Jack have a trip down memory lane that we're going to guide him down, and you might get some nice stories that you didn't even know about. The answers to these questions, Jack, don't have to relate to any save you've ever featured on your YouTube channel. They can be anything from your entire Football Manager / Championship Manager career. So we start at the obvious question. When did Football Manager first captivate your attention?
Oh, it's a great question. So, I've got shocking confession time here. I actually played LMA Manager on PlayStation before I ever played Championship Manager. Is that? Should I walk out now? Is that?
See, you're allowed that because I've also strayed away from the IDOS / SI mantra, I suppose. I actually played Premier Manager 97 when I was.
I thought you were about to say FIFA Manager. Then I was about to.
I have played FIFA Manager, but that was more just so I could laugh. But no, I played Premier Manager 97 both on the Mega Drive. If anyone else has sort of had the experience of that wonderment,
I did that.
Incredible game for something that is on a Mega Drive. And I also played Premier Manager 97 on the PC, which is a very different game, but equally as good. You could buy, you would be doing the one for all the commercial stuff, and you'd buy the billboards and all sorts. In fact, I think you did that one. I think you did that on the Mega Drive
version
both
as well,
didn't you?
As well. Yeah. Rebuild the stand and decide what size stand you want.
Oh, it was brilliant. And
I want all that now. That was brilliant.
It was so basic. The only attribute you had to worry about was either passing, tackling, or shooting depending on whether you were a midfielder, a defender, or a striker. Absolutely fantastic.
That's all I bother about now when I play football. Maybe that's why it's all gone wrong recently in FM 17. No, so actually, as I said, LMA Manager was my first. I actually picked up Championship Manager by chance. My neighbour came round my house with a copy of the game because she'd bought one for her son, but her son had already got it. So I was just like, I'll take that. But the thing is, it was Championship Manager 04, so it was the first one with the 2D match engine. I was only 10 years old at the time. I don't know what I was doing. I just remember it was a Southampton save, and then I discovered regens and just cheesed away. You know, like international team, 16-year-olds, just sign up, like a regen Ryan Giggs. But I can't remember anything about that save. I just remember that was all I did for 2 years. I didn't even think about updating to a newer game. So I got really confused where one day, 2 years later, I went looking for Football Manager and there was a Championship Manager and Football Manager, kind of two separate games.
That didn't help things, I think, at that time. You sort of joined it at the time just prior to the separation then.
Yeah.
Or just because that was the year when we had Championship Manager 03-04 and then we had Championship Manager 4. So it was a very confusing time, I think.
Traumatic. It was especially when I went to find Football Manager or Championship Manager in the store, and there's Football Manager there too. With you had obviously one with the Sports Interactive logo and one with the game that you know. I just didn't know how to feel.
Did you make the right decision?
I did get Football Manager, I'm pleased to say. So
that's all right then. I got both because I was. You had to get both if you were a loser like me.
See, I don't actually. Were there any differences was it the database that took over to Football Manager and Championship Managers just kept all the previous stuff? I don't actually know how it worked.
To be honest, you're the one who should know out of everyone because you're the one who's sort of seen some of the code base, I'd imagine, in your former life as a beta tester.
Yeah, back behind the curtain, I used to work there. I was one of those people who doesn't do their jobs. You know, the people who get moaned at on the Steam forums, where it's just like, why didn't they test this game? I think. Can I go on a little side rant here? Football Manager, like obviously, unlike a lot of games where it's a linear story, anything happens in Football Manager. So you get like a few, say 50 people sat in a room playing the game for kind of 40 weeks, say, leading up to a release. It's like monkeys typing on a typewriter. They're not going to hit every single combination. And the sad thing is that within an hour of the public beta coming out, the people playing in the public have played more hours than all the testers did in the year before. So when people moan at me, it's not my fault. I just tried. I just did a Wolfsburg save, okay? I take it very personally when people just like they don't test the game.
It's all your fault, Jack.
It's apparently so.
Your fault.
So yeah, Championship Manager 04 was my first. I just remember it because it had brand new 2D match engine. I was coming from LMA where there was already 3D in it, so I was a bit puzzled by that. But
that is a bit weird actually. I didn't really play LMA myself. I remember watching one of my uni housemates play it and I remember telling him about Freddy Adu, and that was it basically. Then he would go and sign him every single time, but it seemed very, very simplistic and very easy compared to what Football Manager or what became Football Manager. I mean, myself, I was quite late on the uptake with Football Manager as a series. I think I bought it just as in the October I started uni, and then in the November 06 came out. So I only had about a month's worth of time on Football Manager 05 before 06 came out. Anyway, right. The next question, I should really have sort of given Kev some of the questions, and we could alternate, but if Kev can find them, it's fine. And
I've got them on the screen in front of me. I'm just letting you do what you do.
Oh, what you mean plan and organise?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I feel spontaneous questions may occur.
I'll get on my toes then, ready.
Okay, well, I'll ask the second question, and then we'll carry on.
And
from
then
there
I'll surprise you.
Off the rails.
It'll be me asking the next one.
I don't like this. I don't like this unpredictability.
Losing
this is why I plan everything. Unpredictability has helped no one. Don't like that sinister laugh. Right. Okay. So now we know a bit more of your history, where you started, Jack. I'd like you to take us through your most favoritist, and that is a word. I've had it recognised by the dictionary people, Oxford, obviously. What was your most favoritist save ever, and more importantly, why is it your favourite? And like I said, it can be one that you've had on YouTube, or it could be one that either preceded YouTube or you did personally away from that avenue.
Yeah, okay. Oh, this is a hard one because I feel like if I just say the answer that I want to say, people are going to go, well, you're just on the honeymoon phase because you just finished that one. But if I had to say one, it would probably be the Gibraltar save that I did last year on YouTube.
Oh, but it's the honeymoon phase.
I know, but I feel like I don't know. It's such a. I'd already done a similar series before, but I don't know if you guys get this, but I feel like when you do a save on YouTube, you become a lot more invested in it and connected to the players. I feel like it's because you're repeatedly saying their names aloud and kind of vocally expressing emotion during all the matches that you get a little bit more attached to them all like real people.
Maybe, yeah, absolutely. The only saves that are really properly memorable to me are the ones I've done on YouTube, or the ones I used to put on the SI forum many years ago. But it's the ones that I told other people about. The rest get a little bit throwaway.
Yeah, and
I remember. I know we're talking about Jack, so one thing I really remember from your non-league to legend last year, Kev, was the Lastio haircut. That's the one thing that really sticks out to me. It's a bizarre thing, but yeah.
Well, it changed match to match. It was brilliant. The man's hair grew so quickly. I don't understand how anyone's hair can grow that quickly. He was the only player that it happened to as well. 1 week, full head of hair. Next week, mohawk.
That always makes me inherently sad with regen face packs, where a player's face is just constantly changing. And also, there was one year, a few years ago, where they added like the regens being able to look happy, sad, or like mellow, kind of in the middle. And it always broke my heart when I look at a regen and they're really like upset and angry at me. I feel like I've actually hurt someone's feelings.
I know we're talking about sort of past favourite saves at the moment, but I've noticed in Football Manager 2017 that they just seem to be very dour and unhappy in general. Maybe that's just me. And
I mean, they haven't got shoulders. I feel like I'd be upset if I didn't have shoulders. Maybe that's just me. They're just heads on sticks.
Well, I don't know what you've been doing to your players, Jack, but that's not very fair.
I mean, I don't know. I just imagine there should be shoulders in the regen faces and there's not. So I'm convinced that this world, they're like Westworld hosts. If anyone's been watching Westworld, they'll get that if they haven't. Even of you.
I'm 2 episodes in.
Okay, well, I won't say a word then. Watch it. And if you're listening, watch it. After you've watched this, of course. Watch to the end then. But yeah, I think the Gibraltar
diverted people's attention away already.
Sorry, the Gibraltar save for me, like, I don't know. As I said, it's a save that I'd done before, but I'd never invested so much time into it. And I think it was because, unlike a lot of FM saves where you either move between teams or you only kind of play for 5 or 6 years at a specific team, because I had players in that save who were in my team when they were 18 years old and then went on to retire kind of 20 years later. It kind of, you feel a lot more of a connection, I think, to those players that have kind of carried all the way through. And because it wasn't like I was rapidly rising through the leagues like with a lot of my series, so players become quite disposable and you end up just selling them after 1 or 2 years. It meant that some of those players like I actually got attached to, and I actually got like legitimate sadness as like their pace dropped to like 1 or 2 as they like approach their late 30s. So no, I think that save for me would have to be like my favoritist.
Would it be also like, I mean, obviously you put a lot of effort into getting it set up as well and making the team from scratch effectively.
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with it? I mean,
I think maybe, yeah. I feel like when it's your own team, it's a bit of a labour of love. I think the other thing was because I did stuff like where I redesigned every single team in Gibraltar's badge, and then I got viewers to send in kit designs with those badge kind of designs included, because I kind of realised that to produce like 120 kits just wasn't going to be a particularly fun
You'll be there a while.
use of my time, having spent already about 40 hours on all the different badges. I feel like that perhaps gave it a little bit more of a personal connection as well, because it was a bit of a labour of love, I think, by the end of it, because it was a bit of a slog for spells. I feel like, actually, of all my saves on YouTube, it's one that a lot of people got quite fed up of, because it's like, great, he's in the Champions League qualifying round for the 7th year in the row, and he's still losing 4-0 to Dnipro. Like, it's a bit of a slog, and I feel like if people watched through that, like they almost endured as much as I did, to be honest, because some of the games they must have watched kind of along the way were a little bit kind of drawn out.
Thing is, I thought your save got really interesting when you started qualifying for World Cups with Gibraltar. I thought that's where it, you can see. I've tried doing the San Marino challenge myself, and that is a slog. And I think I got about 10 seasons in and just sort of ended up having to. By the time I think it got to the end of the game's sort of life cycle by that point. I think I tried that on Football Manager 2010, I think.
Yeah.
And before I'd even got anywhere near it, I'd ended up getting bored or just fed up of basically doing exactly what you were doing and getting as far as you could, and then that still wasn't really enough. And the national team you were bearing no fruit at all. And yeah, I didn't even get to the point where you can like win a qualifier, let alone qualify for a World Cup.
I felt like a bit of a fraud when I qualified for the World Cup, and you look across the team and no one was actually born in Gibraltar. They're all just kind of imports from Brazil who have just hung around for 5 years and picked up
nationality.
Doesn't matter.
That's what Ireland do.
It's true.
Look
it's what
Tony
Belgium do as
Cascarino
well.
wasn't even Irish. He didn't even have an Irish grandparent. They just said, "Yeah, Tony, do you fancy a cap?" Yeah, why not? Not even remotely trying to put on an Irish accent. He's just, typical Tony Cascarino. Turns out not even remotely qualified, and he was one of until Robbie Keane broke the record. He was their highest scoring player, I think.
Yeah,
which is naughty.
I think that was another thing actually with the save, was because I don't normally do international management. I don't know about you, but I just find it a bit monotonous and a bit boring, and it's almost like managing 2 teams at once, except at one team you just kind of deal with the hand that you're dealt. So I feel like because I was familiar with all the players for the most part, because they either played for me or one of my top divisional rivals, and I was very much aware of them, and because the Gibraltar League is quite small, there's only 10 teams in the top flight, you actually, with a lot of saves, I feel like once you get to the stage where everyone's regens, you kind of lose track of who's who. Whereas because I had this own kind of little organic Gibraltarian football world that I was in, you kind of know all the big names for all the other teams, and so it was quite interesting. And because you have quite a small pool of players, but a pool of players you're familiar with, it actually made the kind of national management a little bit more tolerable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really do much international management on Football Manager 2016. I know Kev dipped in quite a bit. I mean, I managed...
It's hard. I can't manage. I can't do it. It confuses me.
I love those the episodes towards the end, though, before you retired. I thought it was a very fitting end to your series. But I mean, I managed Japan for about 3 months until I realised I couldn't continue the save because of I think I had to assign... I only had one goalkeeper, and the minimum you had to register was 2, and so that had to end fairly sharpish because I just resigned as I couldn't register the squad for the World Cup qualifiers.
Because you're on holiday for one day, or did that not work?
Nothing worked, and also I then didn't want to have people getting on my back, oh, you holidayed a day. So I didn't really want to risk that in either, so I resigned. I got the Australia job later on, and I just got bored of that as well. It was okay. I think I smashed I got to the World Cup qualifiers, and I qualified with about 4 games in because I smashed everyone about 8-0. It really wasn't difficult because I was against the sort of the Jordans and Kuwaits of this world.
I think that was one thing actually with the Gibraltar save. If I had any complaints, it was the fact that I did have to start just using an instant result button, because when you're playing in the top flight and you win every game for 10 years in a row or whatever it ended up being, it was something stupid. And like Europe's your only focus. You sit there for half an hour watching like 18-0s and it just gets a bit boring, particularly early on. I'm just sat there thinking, I could either put cheat engine on and, just speed up the game really quickly, or I could just instant result, and like it's not going to change the result. I feel like if you would complain about the instant result, I feel like I should just give you like a live feed and you have to watch the entire of the games to go through my pain and suffering. Because I felt like I was aging. It's like, great, he's got his triple hat trick, right? That was like the only gripe I can have with that save. But it did get, by the end of it, what was quite nice was I did end up actually losing games because teams did eventually get to kind of a competitive stage, which was nice. And, you had other teams get into like the group stage of the Champions League. So that was cool.
Right. And unless Kev wants to interject with one of his random questions, I'm going to move on to the next one, which moves on from your favouriteest save to your favourite player or players from a save, or anything that any players that stood out.
This is so hard. There's so many. I did a video of my top 10, and that was before the Gibraltar save, where like I gained attachment to players who were playing for my team for 18 years in the same position. Oh dear, this is really... So can I go through a few? Is that allowed?
You can go through as many as you want. That's why I said player or players. You don't have to have one. Because I was quite attached to your Lewis save when that was a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'd done a Lewis save myself years ago, and I really enjoyed that. I think I got them up to the Championship, and then I jumped ship to Swansea or something like
Traitor.
that. Yeah, I know. I don't have the staying power that you do, Jack, I'm afraid.
So the Lewis save, the obvious one that most people say is like Matthew Lewis, which is just a freak of nature, really. I got very, very lucky, and I kind of worked out why this happened, and it ended up getting fixed. But for those who don't know, basically, I had a player who I signed when I was in the Vanarama South, and he ended up like coming back to me in the Premier League and scoring in the Champions League. And the only reason I was able to, like, he even appeared was because you may be familiar with this, where you find a regen who regenerates as a free agent. And so when a player's generated, the PA and CA the game give them the potential ability and current ability and reputation based off the club that a player generates. That determines reputation as well as its facilities. Whereas when you get regens that generate as free agents, the stuff is basically solely based off a nation, but they're also given very, very, very low rep. And because I was using like a lower English league save, where you had like, down to the 9th tier or whatever, the game had a habit of spewing up a few extra kind of regens who weren't at a club, and he happened to be one of them that got an exceptional role in terms of his potential. So I kind of picked him up. I held on to him for as long as I could, and then Newcastle came and kind of stole him away from me for £3 million, which at the time was like, like a club changing amount of money. Like my team wasn't worth that much. So I kind of had to sell him. And I was just like, right, 3 minutes, what do we do now? Kind of thing. Like, he's just kind of sat there, this big pile of money and no striker. But as the seasons went on, I kept like knocking on the door of Newcastle going, can I have him back on loan, please? Can he come home? And they were like, no, you can't. And I eventually got him back when I was in the Championship. And they had Iosi Perez playing up front for them, and they were only playing with one striker, and he was probably good enough to play in the Premier League. And it was a new Championship side who had him on loan, and I somehow managed to haggle a deal where I got him for £7.5 million back when I got promoted into the Premier League. And I kind of just held on to him, but he scored, I think, 3 hat-tricks in one Champions League kind of run through like the knockout stages, including like a hat-trick in a game where I was losing. I lost, I think, 4-1 to Barcelona away, and then I won the home leg 3-0 to go through on away goals. So he's like the obvious candidate just because he was a bit of a freak of nature. And I
love the fact that there's a player like that exists. That's always been my big gripe with Football Manager, that you don't get the Jamie Vardy situation come up ever in my saves, where you get someone who can play for you in the conference and then play for England. I don't know if I'm just missing it or if I'm not very good at scouting, but I never see that. So that's awesome that's happened.
I mean, I had a few like that they weren't really regens like Jack had, but I had an Exeter save, and it is like if this was going through mine, this would have been one of my favourite saves ever. I took Exeter, who are then in the League 2, I think. It may have been League 1 actually, but from lower down the pyramid, I took them from League 1 or League 2 all the way to basically the Champions League until my save corrupted. And I took Aaron Martin with me the entire way. And this is the Aaron Martin that used to be at Southampton. I'm not sure where he is now. But he was just a beanpole. And he scored about 10 goals a season, because this was, Football Manager 09, I think, where people who are 8 foot tall and had jumping of 20 are not getting beaten in the air at the far post. So he collected goals for fun. But I think him and Troy Archibald Henville were my centre back pairing all the way up till the Premier League, until Henville's pace started dropping off. So it does happen, I think. Maybe not quite conference, but I've had it happen to me on past games. Not so much recently though. I get a bit too trigger happy, and I think, they're not good enough, and then I get rid of them. I
do that all the time, and then people moan at me on YouTube. It's like, I can't believe you sold him. He was a club legend. I'm like, yes, but he's significantly worse than everyone else in the side. I think one of the reasons you don't see those players is that maybe they do exist occasionally, but they just never reach that potential ability because they're stuck playing for like Crawley Town, or just like another. I don't know why Crawley's popped into my head, but basically any team that just doesn't have great facilities, and they just develop. I feel like the AI as well, particularly like the lower league managers, they're just terrible when it comes to training players in general. I don't know, maybe that's just me. It feels like only ever the top teams actually develop players kind of semi-well. But I think for me, like Matthew Lewis is one of them. I think the other player that jumps to mind immediately was a guy called Lorenko, who I had. And he was part of a save I did in, I think, FM14, where I streamed it with Oxford United. And the thing that was unique about this save is I went on holiday for 2 weeks, so I just left the game simulating into the future. To the year, I think it got to like 2,185, but it had like all the major leagues loaded. And I had it on yearly auto saves. And I was kind of just flicking through. I was like, I'll just see what happens, and then I'll see if anything jumps out at me. And there was a Oxford United side who had just been relegated from the Premier League. They'd had a sugar daddy owner come in. They'd failed to be promoted 3 years in a row, reaching the playoffs and losing. And every time they'd sacked their managers, they'd gone through 3 managers in 3 years. Sugar daddy owner tried to throw money at the club and couldn't get anywhere. So I kind of took them over. Failed financial fair play immediately in the Premier League, which was good fun. But the team itself was like kind of made up of a bit of a mishmash of players who I just kind of, managed to attract to the Championship from kind of Liga, from the smaller teams around Europe, basically. But then the sugar daddy pulled out and I had no money. I was like, I need to get a goal scorer in. And I found this guy called Lorenko who was from Mozambique. So as soon as you see like a player, I don't know if this is just me. Nation. When you see like a player from a random nation like Mozambique, you get a little bit giddy. It's, if he's good, I'll just get him because he's from that nation. So I get him in. He's got dreadlocks and like a bun in his hair, from Mozambique. He barely ever plays for the national team because they barely ever play any matches because they don't qualify for anything. And in his first season, he gets 1 goal in 20 games. And I'm sat there thinking, oh my God, he looks great. He's only 19. But he's not scoring. I'll give him the first half of August to try and prove himself, and if he doesn't do anything, then I'll just sign someone before the transfer window closes. And he scored something like 6 goals in 2 games, and I was sat there going, maybe I should keep hold of him now. And he went on over the course of 8 years, which saw me go from being a relegation candidate team struggling to pass financial fair play and getting deducted points at the start of every season to being kind of winning a I don't think I actually won a Champions League, now I think about it, but winning the league a number of seasons, and he was there getting kind of 30 plus goals most years. But very often, if I have a player in that kind of situation who doesn't score, who scores 1 goal his first season, I just sell them on. I feel like in FM, it's just like, right, they're broken, right, get a new one in. I feel like you kind of almost treat players a bit more disposable because you know it's a game. Whereas because he was from Mozambique, I felt this weird affinity to him. Like I had to give him one last chance.
And also people probably think you're racist if you just bin him off straight away.
Exactly. And now whenever I see like Mozambique regions, I always nickname them Lorenko, like in his honour, because they don't appear that often. I think in the Gibraltar save for 1 year
surely
I had a
this
player
will just lead to confusion when there's an influx of them.
Well, I think in the Gibraltar save I signed one player based on the fact he was from Mozambique, and I just called him Lorenko II, and that was his name. Like he didn't have a choice in the matter. It's like you will share this man's name. I think the other two obvious ones that kind of jump out from the Oxford saving it would be a player called Paul Smith and a Canadian midfielder called Joe Bouchard. And the reason those players stick out is because they joined me when I first turned professional as a Gibraltarian club. I had kind of quite a lot of money amassed in the bank, because you kind of do. So I was kind of sat there thinking, what nations and where do I normally go to find cheap regens? Because I like to cheese the game with regens and just, get cool young players and try and develop them. And there's a team in Australia called the Australian Institute of Sports. I think they've renamed now to something like the FFA Centre of Excellence. But you can always find good players at them in Australia. And I saw this guy called Paul Smith, and he had like dual nationality. So I was like, just give him a punt. He looks like a half-decent left winger from what I could see. Signed him on a free transfer because he plays for kind of an academy. And then Joe Bouchard, I signed from the Toronto academy because obviously in America they have the draft system, but I don't know if you guys know this, but you can go to all the draft clubs if you search for them manually and look at all their draft prospects before they go into the draft. And if you're outside of America, you can just sign them.
So is it a bit like how you can do with the the trial teams in like all of the other European nations?
Oh yes,
you can go and look at them before the match and then choose which ones you want to scout.
Obviously, they get drafted in, but they're all on amateur contracts until they get drafted into MLS. But because you can look at them in their academy sides that are all fictional, because the college leagues don't have licenses and stuff. It means you can pull them in. But he happened to be in the Toronto youth team, but in a similar situation, he had an amateur contract. He hadn't been picked up by the teams. I was like, I'll just get him in. He looks like he's played, a few times for the Canadian under-21s. And they were good players at the time. And this was my first season as a professional team. I'd been dealing with Gibraltarian players for ages, and I'd kind of signed a lot of players from America, just like, 2 left backs, right? We'll have them in because we can get them in for free, and they only want a few £100 a week to play. And I kind of got them in thinking they were going to kind of be band-aid solutions. They might push me up, the leagues a little bit over a few years, but that'd be the end of them. But those 2 players ended up playing out their entire careers at the club. I could probably load up the save, but I think between them, they probably had over 1,000 appearances for the club and probably over 500 goals. Because the other thing was, when I was managing Gibraltar, as I said, I was smashing teams kind of double figures a lot of games. So it got to the stage where you just had players with absurd scoring records, where it's like, this guy got 80 goals in 1 calendar year. And it's a little bit silly, but obviously the records get inflated. But these 2 guys, they just kind of, I picked them up thinking they were going to be band-aid solutions. They ended up playing through the club to the stage where they were in their 34 and 35, and they'd been there from the first season the club was professional all the way until I won back-to-back Champions Leagues, and I managed to bring them both on in the second Champions League that I won's final, kind of because I was winning 3-0. So it's like, we'll just throw them on, we'll stick them up front and see if they can do anything. They didn't score to complete the fairy tale, but kind of I feel like they're forever immortalised because they were kind of there for the best part of 18 years of the series.
Oh,
and I feel like also when you get to the stage where the player progression graphs, you could see their ability changes. You could kind of see them peak and stuff. But it got to the stage where it turns out Football Manager doesn't like it if the player has been at the club for 18 years. Like, it gets very confused with what to do with that graph, because why would a player be at the same club? And so you click on it and all the years get confused at the bottom and it doesn't know what decade it's in. And it's kind of funny watching the rise and fall of these players and kind of trying to work out where they peaked.
I never get to the stage where this is an issue, so
I feel like most people don't. I feel like it's when you get to like 2039 and it's just like everything's breaking now. Like, player histories aren't showing always properly.
Those beta testers.
I mean, it's as if they don't have time to play 19 seasons, isn't it? I feel like the thing is with Football Manager, I feel like most quote unquote normal players probably play kind of maybe 5-6 seasons top. So I think that would be kind of an average amount, maybe for quite a hardcore player. I imagine there's a fair few who just don't get past like one season with a lot of teams and kind of just pick up the game every year as a time sink. But no, I think those 4 players for me are kind of the ones that stick out. I think Paul Smith and Joe Bouchard, because of kind of the journey they went on, they kind of became the club in a lot of ways. Matthew Lewis, just because he had this weird career where he joined the team, he was exceptional, he was clearly too good for me. I sold him, I brought him back in, sunk a lot of money into him, and then he kind of was able to carry me to a Champions League. I think he got 75 goals in one season across the Premier League and Champions League. And then Lourenco, just because he was a Mozambican man who I gave a second chance to, and I'm kind of glad I did, because everyone would have been very upset with me. There's one other player, which is Conor Curry. If hardcore people who watched my streams years ago know about Conor Curry, like, you know the story. Basically, I saw him, I was going through all the Championship regens. It was during the FM14 beta. I was doing a save with Wolverhampton Wanderers, which actually started with me managing in Italy, and I was sacked. And Kenny Jackett was doing well in League One with Wolves, so he left and I got the job. But I was looking through regens, and I go, look at this guy. Oh, he's got some good technicals, but he's bad. And suddenly I look at the chat, and people are like lit up, spamming Curry. You've got to sign him. His last name's Curry. His name, sign him. Get the Curry in the van, because that was the phrase that I had for like getting regens signed. Was they're in the van. You kind of smuggled them up and stolen them away from the other academies. So I ended up signing him, and to be honest, he was never actually that good. I think he ended up having like 20 finishing, 20 off the ball, and 20 composure. So he was like the best attacking player in the world. But he wasn't actually any good anywhere else. And the only reason he was really known is because he carried me through 1 year of the Championship. But I think the thing with that save was, it was when I was a student, so no responsibilities in life. It's a bit like being unemployed, except your parents are proud, really, being a student. But
I've never heard it described.
So I was just playing Football Manager. So I think I streamed during the beta. I played for about 10 seasons in like a week or two, because I was just constantly playing every week now. It's like people would go to work, come back and be like, "You're right, Jack. So you've gone forward like 2 seasons since I was last here. Can you show us the players and how they're getting on?" You know when you hear about like people in internet cafes like dying because they just like cease all motor functions. That was me with that save. Like, just hit the stream button, sit there, go to bed, turn it off, come back.
I remember doing similar things, although it was around the time of when I was doing dissertations and stuff. But unfortunately, Football Manager took preference. And yeah, that's why I didn't get the degree I should have done. But hey ho, preference.
It's all Football Manager's fault.
Exactly. Basically, Championship Manager 0102 ruined my A levels, and then Football Manager ruined my degree, or alternatively, my willpower to not play it. But I'm still sticking with blaming SI, because why not?
That's easier, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes the blame away from me. It's not my fault.
You sound like those reviewers on Steam who complain about the game. No, my tactics work. It's SI's fault. Conspiracy theory.
So with all the... Sorry to...
I was going to say, I don't know if Kev has any... I'm awaiting the Kev question, so I was going to ask if Kev had any questions burning.
Don't you worry, the questions will come when they...
Basically, he hasn't got any yet.
I haven't thought of anything.
This is Kev's idea of planning, quote unquote. Yeah. I don't have any questions, but if something pops into my mind...
Look, after many years of podcasting, basically, if people are talking, I don't need to say anything yet. It's when the conversation stops, something will spring to mind. It's hardwired into me.
Excellent. Right. Well, this is why we've got you, Kev, just in case we need some blank air to fill. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want him putting adverts on or anything, do you?
Should we both just stop talking so Kev has to say something? Is that?
We'll just play a song. It'll be fine.
This could be Kev's plan all along, and he's just going to sabotage us. So, or say me, because he's Kev.
Hey, I've got a randomly generated question that's just come to me out of thin air.
Oh.
Would you be tempted to ever go back?
This was from the plan. I knew you were going to do this. This is
I don't even know what it means. Explain it to me. What does that question mean?
To go the question. See, you don't even know what the question actually is. This is: would you ever be tempted to go back to one of your past saves, or like either to replay it? And this is quite pertinent because I noticed that you were playing Gibraltar on Twitch the other week.
I was
obviously
indeed.
For people who are watching or listening to this later on, this could mean anything. But Jack was playing went back and played his Gibraltar save last weekend on Twitch, but it was more just when you have those memories with a particular save. It's the same with anything though. Like nostalgia is such a powerful thing. I remember like playing Final Fantasy VII when I was younger and thinking this is the best game ever, despite the graphics being like blocky shitballs. And
then
you go
being
back,
really dull.
Yeah, and then you go back, and it just ruins everything. It's a dangerous thing. I just think,
it is.
Like I sort of, with Return of the Rovers, it was a very personal project to me because one of my favourite saves of mine was a Blackburn save I did on Championship Manager 0102, where I had a 43-year-old Alan Shearer firing us to the Champions League final and the title of the Champions League too, which is incredible because you could get a player to just never retire if you kept on playing him basically. But this is why I wanted to try and resurrect it, and since Blackburn had been relegated in real life, it was a really good sort of project to build from anyway, and I like a project to I don't want to just start with something that's ready built and just go. I like to build something of my own. But so I appreciate how dangerous that can be, and in the end I actually fell in love with the Blackburn save, and I was a bit unhappy that like Football Manager 16's life cycle sort of fell off the end of it, which basically meant the save kind of naturally ended that way anyway.
Yeah.
But I would wish to have seen what I could have done with that one instead. But have you had a similar sort of urge to go back, obviously other than Gibraltar, to anything else? Like maybe restarting a save on a newer game and seeing if you can either replicate it, do better, or the situation of the team's completely different.
Yeah. I feel like I've looked at my old saves before and thought about going back, but I always just get annoyed because I always prefer that. Maybe this should be. I always feel like Football Manager gets better every year. So if I go back and play FM13 now, I just don't enjoy it so much. I start longing for the stuff that was there before, and so when I open up old saves, it's often just to like rekindle memories. It's a bit like looking at an old photograph, as opposed to going, I should go there again of whatever's in the photograph. If that analogy makes any sense, like, so
yeah, I completely get what you mean. But would you ever be tempted to say do another Lewis save, for example?
I don't think so. I think the issue is that if you do the same save again, it kind of just detracts from what you did before. It's always going to impact that previous save. So if you do the same, if I was to go and manage Lewis again, there'd be the people who have this weird expectation it has to live up to the previous save, and like there has to be a Matthew Lewis, for example, a player who I've played Football Manager and Championship Manager for over 12 years. I've only ever had one player like that I know of and can remember, and that was Matthew Lewis. And like I feel like people would always draw those comparisons up. I feel like if you're doing your own personal save, it's not quite so bad. But at the same time, it's like I feel like you're kind of treading on sacred ground a little bit if you try and do a save you've done before. And well, I might be tempted to go back to Gibraltar again, except Brexit's ruined everything for Gibraltar, so it's just not as appealing anymore. And obviously the Champions League qualifying rules are like set to change, and the big leagues are going to get spots, and it affects teams like Gibraltar. So it's like, even if I wanted to replicate it, it's almost certainly not going to be the same again. As I said, the Gibraltar save I did was a save that I'd done before 2 years prior, actually during a hiatus I took during FM14. I did kind of a Gibraltar save in my own time. And I probably wouldn't have done it again on YouTube if it wasn't for the fact that I'd only ever really tweeted about that other save. So people weren't that familiar with it, and it was something fresh. I feel like if, I don't know, for example, Lewis FC were to get promoted to the Championship in 8 years' time, and people were like, Jack, go back to Lewis, then it'd be slightly different because the whole circumstance has changed. I feel like I'm almost at a disadvantage in the sense that kind of traditionally I do these lower league saves, so it's a lot less likely for a team to kind of rise up through the ranks than fall from grace. I mean, maybe I should have done an AFC Wimbledon save in hindsight in 2009, and then I could kind of pull it off a little bit now. But I feel like, as I said, it's a risky game trying to replicate a save you've done before, and I feel like particularly when you have an audience watching it, there's like that added pressure and that added degree of kind of expectation, I guess, that it's going to live up to what people perceive the previous save to be.
Yeah, non-league to Legend 2's going great.
I mean, you've
But to
taken
be
the
fair,
plunge.
I did deliberately start at a different club, so it's because of the nature of how it works. It's not staying in the same club the whole time. It's already veered off in a completely different direction. So
But
I think it's a little bit different for me because I never stay at a club more than a few years.
But is it not difficult? Like, obviously, you're entirely reliant upon like, if say next year you do another non-league to legend. Is it not difficult to make sure that, or to pick another team? Like, say. I'm
relying on Corby coming back up.
Yeah, well, say if they
key.
don't though, and the team stay as they are, or if Gainsborough get relegated, what you know.
I just find the next nearest one that I've never done before, I guess, or come up with some reason why. Oh, I've been relocated to Wales. Ooh, what will I do? Don't worry. There's always a plan. And who says there's going to be a non-league to legend next year? Who says I'll still be doing YouTube next year? Anything could happen.
Don't tempt it. Might lose a leg
I could.
or something. I don't know why I chose a leg, to be honest.
I don't know how much impact that'd have on making YouTube videos. To be honest,
Probably mean you can do more.
You mean that you guys don't play like controlling your mouse with your foot, so you have two hands free when you play Football Manager? That's why I play Football Manager, so I have the hands free. Can do.
I'm
read a
usually
newspaper.
pedaling to keep the electricity on in my garage, so I couldn't control it with my feet.
Maybe my idea of like creating a video to show people how you can play Football Manager with a Steam controller isn't that far fetched.
Do you actually play with a Steam controller then?
No, but I've done it
because I've weighed it up in my mind. Years ago, I tried a thing where there's a piece of software called Xpadder, which allows you to map kind of key inputs and mouse inputs to a controller. And I did try playing Football Manager with a controller. Now, it's not that great. I'm going to be honest. For the effort that I put in mapping all the buttons and stuff,
did you ever play it on Xbox? Because they released 2007 and 2008 on Xbox.
I did not. I feel like there's a reason why it never came back to those consoles as well.
There is a reason. It wasn't very easy.
Yeah, especially if you didn't have a high definition telly.
That too.
I'd say that
you were ruined.
That was the beauty actually of LMA Manager, was that it knew it was a console game, so it kind of stuck to what it knew rather than going too mad, trying to like push the boundaries out there. Like if you've never played LMA Manager, go and play it for the controller scheme, because that's how I actually envisage like a console Football Manager would have to work.
Or they could go and watch your videos on your channel that showcase LMA.
They could. I mean, I've got to be honest. I've done it twice, a series on LMA. They both discontinued after 5 or 6 episodes, because the issue is people are really enthusiastic about it in the beginning. They go, yes, LMA Manager, I used to love this game. Episode 5, there's like 2 people watching. And then by kind of 3, it gets to like a few videos later of a different season, people comment, you get one comment like, is it dead now? Kind of question mark. It's just no one ever asks anything about it again. You just sweep it under the rug. People kind of forget about it. That's the thing as well. I feel like when you're onto kind of a bad save when people just don't ask about it when it's gone. Do you know what I mean? It's just like no one cared about it. That's kind of when I get there, it's like, right, I made the right decision there.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks. I've not had anyone ask where FIFA's gone on my channel. Oh, they're not playing FIFA. No one cares.
I was quite enjoying your little FIFA save, getting back a few legends of time passed, and then it ended.
Yeah.
Heartbroken.
Sounds like you were the only person watching.
I mean, if only I'd liked it more and like left more comments loving it.
Exactly.
I just have to live with that, I guess.
Yeah, no one's watching my Recreativo save, so it's fine. And that'll just die a death like I have this.
I think no one's watching YouTube videos at the moment, if you believe what all the naysayers are saying. It's like the end of the world, isn't it, with YouTube? It's like no one's watching videos, sub boxes are broken, the sky is falling.
The sky is falling. Well, I suppose that brings us on to my final question, and then Kev can come up with any randomness he wishes. And it's a bit of a sour note to end on, I suppose. And you can pass if you're not quite ready to man up.
Okay.
In front of the world, or at least YouTube. But who knows? The world might be imploding, as we've already alluded to. But have you ever been sacked in any save that you're willing to admit to?
Oh, I have one example. The thing with Football Manager is, okay, I feel like once you've gotten the swing of a Football Manager and you kind of know a tactic or tactics that work and which roles kind of complement each other, it's actually quite hard to get sacked. Maybe that's just me. I feel like if you
Can
play,
you hear my teeth grinding? on the
if
microphone?
you play Football Manager like a game rather than treating it like an actual kind of football management thing, like you can game it in certain ways. Maybe that's just me because, like, obviously I worked as a tester, so I kind of know a little bit behind the scenes. I've played it a lot. I understand all the stupid formulas and stuff that just go into just about everything. But I did once get sacked in very humiliating fashion on, say, while I was streaming, actually, which probably made it worse. Because there's one thing when you're struggling on a save on YouTube and people are kind of giving advice in hindsight. You know, you're winning 2-0 and you lose 3-2 in the last 5 minutes and someone goes, should have gone on defensive. It's like, thank you, Captain Obvious. I'm sure you were saying that when it was 2-0, weren't you?
Captain Obvious.
So they're my favourite people. But when it's on Twitch and you've got people going, jack out or work the space out, and it's just like, oh gosh, they're revolting. Like, people are a little bit more vocal then and they criticise everything. But it was actually while I was doing the Oxford save. So as I mentioned, I did this Oxford save where I kind of took over them in the future, like just by picking up a random save point. I actually picked up another save from that prior to Oxford with Havant and Waterlooville, who were in the Premier League. And I thought, you know, Premier League, Havant and Waterlooville, they're struggling for money. They scraped by last year. You know, it's going to be a bit of a slog. How can we get on? Signed a few good players. I signed the top goal scorer from Ligue 1, from Montpellier. I was thinking, yes, you know, we're on to a winner now. It's all coming up Millhouse. 20 games into the season, I was sacked. I think I lost 16 games 1-0 and drew 4 games 1-1. I don't think I won a game. But it was one of these ridiculous things where it felt like every single game I lost 1-0. You could probably find some stream highlights somewhere that someone's like taking, because honestly, I was having a meltdown. You know how you see the people on like online and on forums and whatnot who are like come up with the FM conspiracy theories of like the game's rigged, you know, it's scripted and all that. I know why they say that stuff if they're having saves like that one I had, because it was just one of those saves where everything went against me. You know, the top goal scorer gets injured and it's all just going wrong, and it's just I don't know, that's the one save that sticks out to me as kind of like most humiliating thing, because people were just mocking me. Now I was fortunate in the sense that I then went to Oxford and people, obviously I redeemed myself, you know, redemption was done. But whenever I now see Havant and Waterlooville, some people remember Havant for being that team that went on a little FA Cup run like a decade ago. I remember them as
Liverpool, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
I remember them as the team in 2164 who sacked me after 20 games, like without winning a game.
Not bitter.
I can't. Honestly, it's one of those things where I forget about it. When you asked this question, and I had the question sent through to me a few days ago, it like flicked a switch on my mind that reminded me of it. Because it's one of those things
rocking
where
backwards and forwards in your room.
It was like that, honestly. You think you're joking, but but it's one of those things where I've just erased it from my mind. I can't remember any of the players other than the striker I signed, like intentionally. Like, it's just a blocked out segment of my life. It's just a bad dream.
I want to try and find these stream highlights now.
Maybe
they'll rival the video of you when you were playing Rocket League and you had an absolute meltdown when you scored a last minute.
It was a great goal.
That's still my favourite Twitch moment ever, I think, from anything ever.
If people haven't seen that clip, I don't know where it is.
I'm going to link it in the description.
Excellent.
So everyone can see it. There are expletives, so just be aware.
I will try and find the Havant thing. There definitely is. I've just remembered one of the games as Havant manager. I'm going to try and find it online while we continue going, if I can. But yeah, that save, the Havant has been deleted from my mind. The only other save I can think of is last year, actually, with the Hexagon Challenge, which I kind of started, and then it was one of those saves that got swept under the rug, because I realised that doing a save in Gibraltar whilst doing kind of the Pentagon Challenge but with Oceania thrown in wasn't a good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner, you know, kind of two saves that take hundreds of hours of your time. But I actually got sacked.
I don't know how these people managed two saves at a time anyway. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with that.
Yeah.
Some of us are just really clever.
I wish I was clever.
Well, comes with age and experience.
Just age.
You've got that in abundance then.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
But yeah, there was this save where I got sacked from Beijing IT, so that happened too.
I remember that.
Although, to be fair, I took over them only because I'd managed them like in a previous Pentagon Challenge on FM13, and they were basically down. But I was like, I'll just give them one last hope. You know, we need 3 wins probably to stay up in our last 4 games, and they've won 2 all year. But maybe it can happen. Spoilers, it didn't.
Spoilers. Was that one of those where 2 people started watching it by the end of it?
I think so. Actually, now I think about it, I don't think I got sacked from Haven't and Waterloo. I think I actually resigned just so I didn't get sacked.
Oh dear.
I was
that
a bit
sounds
bitter.
Like a Kev move.
I think I was actually very bitter about that save. The more I think about it, the more worked up I'm getting mentally.
Right, we'll skip over that, and unless Kev has any questions.
No, I'm eager to get away from talking about being sacked as quickly as possible.
Well, don't worry, your time will come, Kev. Your time will come.
Oh, good.
So we'll leave that for when a guest bails or I don't have one lined up.
What? And I have to be the guest.
You have to be the
guest.
guest.
We both play at being guest.
We'll do then you can take on the role of preparing questions.
Not gonna happen. I'll just make them up on the fly. Keep you on your toes.
I've just remembered one more time where I got sacked. Sorry, this has
been the most in-depth answer we've had, Jack.
I'm sorry.
Anything is all of the worst moments of my life.
I'm getting it all out on the table here, I feel like. I was managing Wolfsburg once. I was playing Victor Valdez up front. It wasn't going that well, but he did score.
I wonder why that wasn't going well.
It was in about February, and we're in 10th, and I'm kind of... There's a stream highlight of this, so I can give you the video link. But I kind of plead with the board. I'm like, give me one more year. You know, this is our time. It was during the beta, so you can imagine what might have happened here. I begged them, more out of tongue in cheek, in February for more time, I think it was. And they go, yeah, we'll give you more time. Continue on, sacked. Whilst on stream. You can imagine that went down. Well, I was sat there flabbergasted at what I'd just seen because I was just sacked after being told my job was safe. I thought I'd have winged it. You know, it's like the agony and the ecstasy. Or whatever that thing was that Football Manager used as a tagline to advertise. I can't remember. Bottled it, that's the one.
Something like that. Right, okay, then I think that brings us to the end, unless Kev is going to intercept. No? Last orders, Kev? No.
What's that?
No random questions? No?
How dare you?
Good. Right, okay then. As this is the end, or the outro of the podcast, I should probably say, it would be rude not to let you both plug your own stuff. So, Jack, where can people find you, and what are you doing at the moment? If they don't know already. I assume they would, because you've probably directed most people here anyway. So
at the moment, I'm doing a Hereford save. This is the point where I tell you I'm at WorkTheSpace.com, but I forgot to renew that domain and someone stole it. So if you're watching...
That's brilliant.
If you're watching...
Hey, I tell you what, I tweeted yesterday, does anyone know where you can get a cheap .fm URL? Within an hour, Lelujo.fm had been bought by some scumbag.
Yeah. WorkTheSpace.com has gone forever, as far as I'm aware. So that used to die there. But you can find me at youtube.com/WorkTheSpace or at Twitter, which is at Jaxie, spelled incorrectly because I can't spell my own name. It's JAKZEH.
The links will be in the description because I'm a good boy, if I remember.
Thank you.
Kev, where can people find you?
Obviously
not at lelujo.fm.
Yeah, if you do, feel free to just abuse whoever does own that site, because I'm mortified. I had grand plans for it, but yeah, there's a YouTube channel that's called Lelujo and a Twitter. They're 2 places that you can find me, both with the same name. I challenge you to learn how to spell it.
How did you get that name, by the way?
There's a story behind that. I'll tell you one day.
Going in the loop here.
Going well, isn't it? Right, okay. Thank you for your time, both of you, and thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and this inaugural episode of #Narrative, then please tickle the like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Whilst you're here, why don't you look around, see what else might take your fancy. It's all Football Manager-y stuff anyway, so enjoy away. It's goodbye from Jack.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Kev.
Toodle pip.
And it's goodbye from me. I'll see you soon. Adios.